we have two superstars in the studio for this debate on switching codes from Rugby League to Union. Stuart Barnes in the studio with us. Let's talk first of all about two players in particular. Chris Ashton, who's moved from Wigan to Northampton, had great success for club and country. Also, speculation, Kyle Eastman going to be making the transition. First of all, let's talk about the attraction of moving from League to Union, Stuart. What's the main attraction?
Money.
Is that it primarily?
Yes. I mean, these people are professionals, and let's be honest, for 100 years, League was professional, Union was amateur, and one of the reasons people went, especially from Wales, where they were working in mines for not a great deal of money, was to be paid to be expert at their sport, and I saw nothing wrong with that. Now, the boot is on the other foot a bit. I think rugby union is probably a more global game, therefore the money is greater, and I think that is the first priority. The other one, of course, is I think if you're an outstanding rugby player, you want to play at the highest level, be it league or union. And I think, you've got in union, I think the Heineken Cup is massive, and beyond that there's the World Cup. And you know, much as I love league, I got to say I think union has one huge edge over it.
When did you start your World Cup? Well, hang on, when did you start Rugby Union World Cup? Go on, what year?
1987, and I know Steve.
And you know, we had it in 1954. That's the forward thinking that we have in Rugby League. Of course, Barnes is absolutely spot on in regards to money. Money talks all languages, but I get the funny feeling that this Kyle Eastman, I think it's gone to his head a little bit. He's only played 50-odd games for St Helens, and about 28 of those has been coming off the bench as a sub. Now, Bath say that they want him, and believe you me, I think he will go.
Will it work?
I don't think so, no.
Why?
Because he'll probably be the smallest player in Rugby Union in that division.
Does size matter?
And, well, I think if they play him at fullback, I can't see them playing him on the wing. Now, this guy, 2 years ago, 18 months ago, he really burst onto the scene. He's a tremendous player, don't get me wrong, but he was explosive. Now, he played at Cardiff over the weekend against Wigan, and he took the ball up to the opposition on 2 occasions in the full 80 minutes. Now, that's not the Kyle Eastman that we've seen. Now, he's just had an operation on his ankle. He's already had problems with his groin. Now, in the past, the Rugby Union, they've poached our Rugby League players, but normally they've waited until they were near their pension. But now, at least, they're going to go for youngsters. And I honestly believe, it's only my opinion, but I don't think that he will sign an extended contract for St Helens, which will be a shame because this guy has been nurtured through. They got rid of Sean Long because they wanted to give Kyle Eastman that position. It's yours, Kyle, for you to be the #1 star and to organise this team.
And that's fascinating, though, if he's taken Sean Long's position, because oval ball and there's a try line and the posts are the same size, so a lot of people think, well, they're just about the same game. They're not the same game, and there are certain areas where you can slot in really well. If you're a winger or a full-back from league into union, it's quite easy, but if you're a scrum half or your back row, then it's very difficult, because as Andy Farrell found, the concept of when to hit rucks or not, when to give ball or not, when to go to the line, I think rugby league is slightly more one-dimensional. I think it has it's more one-dimensional, but it has a greater range of athletic skills. I think what union has is an
I'll tell you what.
Let me finish this, Steve.
No, I'm not having that. I'm not copying that. One-dimensional. Listen, rugby. I'll tell you what. Rugby union was the best supporting game to go there as a fan and touch the ball more than the players, because they were kicking the damn thing into the stands all the time.
This is when the game was amateur.
This isn't necessarily about which sport is better, because they have their own qualities in their own rights. What it is about crossing between the two, and we've seen Wigan trying to nail down on contracts on some of their youngsters. They know that the lure is there. Do you think it will continue, or do you think these bigger contracts in league can stop players crossing?
I hate to say this, but there has been a myth for many, many years in regards to whenever we have a good youngster coming through, you'll guarantee that the agents of these players, they'll be saying to all the press, and let's take into consideration that a lot of the media will just soak it up, and then they automatically say, oh, this fella's going, this fella has to be attracted by so-and-so. You know, Leeds and Wigan have just signed up on long-term contracts these young kids that are showing promise, not only showing promise, but are putting out good displays week in, week out. The myth is that these players are being signed by their clubs because they're frightened of being poached to rugby union. It's a load of hogwash. They sign because they want to play the greatest game in the world, rugby league. Now, we can go through as many as you want. Chev Walker was perhaps the last one. You know, Lee Smith, they tried this rugby union game. And these were 3 quarters, and they didn't fit in. And let's face it. And by the way, you said that's only when it was an amateur game. The only thing that changed is that from amateur is that they started filling out a tax return. They started paying money on their tax. He couldn't get his boots on when he played.
Steve-o,
that much money stuffed in them.
This is nonsense.
Just for 2 seconds, I've got a bucket of cold water down there. Put your head in it and just cool down for 2 seconds, because I want to hear from Northampton's director of rugby. Obviously, he's had Ashton, who we were talking about, Stephen Myler as well, both backs. Let's hear what he has had to say.
I think it's easier for an outside back. I think if you play on the wing or at full back, it's the easiest. I think as you actually come in, then it becomes more difficult. Your half backs, difficult to pick up. It takes you a long time, and certainly your forwards are a different proposition altogether. So you know, it's not easy, but it's certainly possible. And I think the younger that players can do it, the better. The older they are, the harder it actually becomes.
Stuart, what do you think about those 2 points, that it's easier to make the transition into the positions as far as the backs are concerned, and if you do it young, then that's the best time to do it? Is Jim Allender right there?
I mean, that's the point I made initially. You know, you're a wide back, you can do it. It's harder the nearer you get to the fulcrum of the game where there's decision making, because rugby union is slightly more dimensional.
This is the iconic moment of the transition, isn't it, really, for Chris Ashton?
Ashton has got beyond that a long time. I mean, as soon as he joined Northampton, he looked as if he was going to become an international union player. He's an outstanding player, and I think playing wing in union or league, same attributes are required, and that is no great shot. But in other areas, then it is difficult, and it is all about decision making, and it is about doing it under a great pressure mentally. I think physically, the one-on-one confrontations in rugby league are greater across the park. But I think because of the nature of the ruck and the breakdown, the decision of when to go in and when not to makes rugby union a much harder game to think your way through. And I'm not saying which is better. Some people like drafts and some people like chess. I leave each to their own. I prefer chess, but I see a great place for drafts.
I'm very, very good at drafts, if you must know.
I'm sure you would be, Steve-o.
Look, I agree with you. Look, this kid is exceptional. But 18 months ago, he wanted to come back to Wigan. He actually could not settle. Now, fair play to this youngster. He really has taken it. He has got himself involved. But a lot of the media now is saying that, oh, isn't it fantastic? Because he's had the rugby league upbringing, and instead of just staying out on the wing, as a lot of wingers do in rugby union, and blowing their nose and shivering in the cold, he looks for work. He can see, he can analyse when someone's going to make a half break. He can see when there's an opportunity either to have the overlap on the outside. And how many times do we see this fella come back looking for work on the inside? That's something that is born and bred into rugby league players. Look, I have greatest respect for rugby union. You know, they started it in midway through the 19th century. Yeah. Thankfully, we grabbed it and turned it into a spectacle on the 29th of August 1895, and we changed a few of the rules. We've often done that because we want to make it easier and more spectacular for the players, and also to make it very good for the fans. Now, you cannot, no one from Rugby Union can ever point to me and say that that the Rugby Union have not tried to copy most of the things from Rugby League we have tried.
Hang on, Steve-o. In the Southern Hemisphere, you're 100% right. And I think in Union there was a great resistance, and it might have been almost a dinosaur's resistance to the Tri-Nations in Super 14, because they felt there was a weakening of the scrum, which some people think is very important in Union. Other people think is a means of restart. In Rugby League, it is a restart. In Union, it is a way of opening space up. It goes back again to, do you want a game that is played at a lightning pace for 80 minutes, or do you want a game that shifts in its terms of pace? And in all seriousness now, I honestly think it is a question of which you prefer now. There's more nuance in Union, there's more pure dynamism in League. But I would say if you watch New Zealand play, they maintain the very best of Union traditions in terms of their scrum and their line-out. People like Brad Thorne have come through and added league skills, and you have a team there infinitely superior to just about anything in rugby union except perhaps Australia, who can be quite good on the day.